Hello, everyone. I'm here with Ofeira. Ofeira, how are you doing?
Hi, Stephen. I'm good, thank you.
Yeah. So, Ofeira, you live in Samoa and you do a lot of work with climate science. Do you want to walk us through what you do?
Yeah, well, sure. So in simple terms, I help make sure development projects like buildings, seawalls, roads, bridges, or agricultural facilities are planned and carried out in a way that doesn't harm the environment or communities. I mostly work across the Pacific with governments, communities, and development partners. So it usually involves doing environmental and social impact assessments, writing up environmental and social management plans, applying for development consents, and working closely with affected people, affected communities, and relevant stakeholders. I also advise on how to meet both national laws and donor requirements. So it's a lot of balancing different perspectives while keeping the environment and people at the center.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. So, it seems like you work across the Pacific, and this is a region that is being pretty significantly affected by some, changes to human-made changes to the climate. What parts of the Pacific do you typically work in? I mean, like, what are there particular regions within or countries, or where do you typically work?
Okay. So I'm based in Samoa, but my work has taken me across the region. I've worked in places like New Zealand, Tuvalu, Timor-Leste, Papua New Guinea, Kiribati, Fiji, Tonga, and Vanuatu. And I have upcoming assignments in the Solomon Islands and Marshall Islands. So most of that work is through regional programs supported by partners like the World Bank, the Pacific Regional Infrastructure Facility through the Asian Development Bank, and the Secretariat of the Pacific Region Environment Program, or SPRIP. So I get to see a broad picture of the region, but also understand each country's unique challenges in the area of environment and social risk management.
Yeah, this makes total sense. So, maybe let's get into the juice of what you were just talking about. So, at the end of that, so what do you see as some of the biggest, based off of all these different your different work and doing all these different impact assessments? What do you see as some of the biggest environmental issues affecting the Pacific right now?
Okay, so there's quite a few, and many of them stem from unsustainable development practices, like degradation is a big one, especially where development has happened without proper planning or consideration for the natural environment and surrounding communities. We also face serious challenges with waste, particularly plastic and hazardous materials, which are difficult to manage on small islands. Deforestation and biodiversity loss are ongoing issues, especially in areas where land is being cleared for agricultural settlements. And in urban centers, water pollution is becoming more common as natural systems are increasingly under pressure. But then on top of all that, we're also seeing the more visible impacts of climate change, like rising sea levels, more coastal erosion, frequent flooding, and stronger and more unpredictable storms. And these are affecting everything from food security and infrastructure to people's safety and cultural heritage.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, this does seem like a lot. It also seems like it it seems like some of this is based off of humans trying to build. Some of this is based off of things that maybe people are doing in other countries that are causing issues in Polynesia or in the Pacific Island. What's your take? I mean, what do you think? Like, I guess, what do you think we're doing that are leading to some of these issues, and what can we do to help it, like, address or help, maybe,
Yeah.
let's say, thrive as communities while not biting into some of this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, from experience working in the Pacific, one of the main drivers is the growing pressure to develop fast. So across the region, there's increasing demand for housing, and I'm sure you're seeing this through your travels in the Pacific.
I
There's
definitely am.
increasing demand for housing, infrastructure, tourism facilities, and economic growth. And while development is necessary, when it's rushed or poorly planned, as is often the case here in Pacific, um, it's often at the expense of the environment, and that's the natural, physical, and human environment. And so this pressure can lead to, coastal developments too close to the shoreline, deforestation for land use, and poor waste management systems that can't keep up with demand. And in many cases, developments go ahead without proper environmental assessments or long-term planning, which leads to, cumulative impacts on fragile ecosystems. So at the same time, another problem is the enforcement of environmental regulations. It can be weak, often due to limited capacity or resources within government agencies, and that is a common problem throughout the Pacific. And even when the laws are there, it's a challenge to monitor and enforce them consistently. And then, of course, we have the global layer, which is climate change. It's accelerating many of these environmental pressures in the Pacific. Even though Pacific nations contribute very little to global emissions, we're seeing some of the most severe impacts, especially along our coasts. So, lastly, the cultural shifts also play a role. As communities modernize, some traditional knowledge systems that once supported sustainable resource use are being lost or overlooked in our Pacific nations, and it makes it harder to maintain balance between development and environmental stewardship.
Yeah, this makes total sense. With this last one, the kind of these cultural practices that are no longer able to be done. That can you give maybe an example of like here's a set of here's a way that people typically kind of created a better relationship with different aspects of the environment, but then it's not possible to do right now, or it's being undermined?
Well, there's in Samoa we have our traditional land use patterns. So we have allocated lands for plantations, allocated land for settlements. But now that pattern is being what's the word? It's being overtaken by the the movement of people from rural areas to the urban towns, and that is not and that's being impacted on with the traditional use of lands, and also the taking of customary lands, and most of them are now freehold lands or government lands. So there is no longer that practice of traditional land use.
I could definitely see that. I could see it, like in my experience traveling throughout these islands, I've seen a lot of urbanization, and urbanization might undermine. It might if less people are maintaining the farms, then the farms you fall into disuse. The farmland, it could get gobbled up by others or by the government. Yeah. And I maybe more broadly, I mean, one thing I think that about these that struck me traveling throughout the Pacific, you were talking about this before with the 5 issues you mentioned, but many of the countries are by global standards very small in terms of population. So many countries have a population around or under 100,000, but they're encountering a lot of different issues. And I could see that leading to governments not necessarily having the resources to be able to address the issues that they're having, whether those issues are based off of how people within the society are moving and changing their lives, or whether that's from issues from abroad that are impacting them. And I could see, like in your case, as a evaluator, I mean, you're very front and center with problems where if a government's trying to do something real quick and they're not considering the environmental impact, you're very you're very much on the front lines of that. Or yeah, what's that like? Or how do you maybe help governments try to actually think about these issues, given what it is that they might be trying to do or build?
Yeah, well, yes, that is part of my job is, just trying to be at the forefront of helping to manage our environment and communities where developments take place. And I'm very thankful that some of the work that I'm doing is to help our governments build capacity and develop capacity in governments to improve their environmental and social risk management systems. So yeah, it's quite exciting because we realize that there is a gap, there is a challenge in that area, and so now we are trying to help improve that system.
That's awesome. You were talking about climate change.
Yes.
What do you see as like some of the biggest ways that climate change is impacting these island countries?
There's a few impacts of climate change that we're seeing in the Pacific, like I've listed before, with sea level rise, coastal flooding, changes in rainfall patterns. Like we're supposed to be in the dry season now, but it's like still rainy. A lot of rainfall recorded. Stronger storms. We've had some very strong storms recorded in the Pacific in recent years. And another problem is salt water affecting crops. Yeah, those are some of the impacts of climate change that is very real. And the Pacific people they feel that every day. And yeah, that's those are the impacts that I see around the Pacific with the work that I'm doing.
Yeah, this is very sad. I mean, this region seems very front and center because climate change is affecting the ocean, and people in island countries have a very intimate relationship with the ocean.
Yeah.
And I maybe as an example, when I was in Samoa a couple weeks ago, it rained a lot. And it's funny that you say it's the dry season because I thought it was the rainy season because it like rained like for like 5 days. I was like, I guess on a practical level, I just assumed it was the rainy season because it was raining so much.
It's usually the dry season, dry and cool season right now, but it's just been raining and it's hot. Yeah.
And it seems like that, like, how does that impact communities? Like, I guess all this would impact agriculture the ability for people to grow things, or yeah, how's it?
And that too. Yeah, it affects agriculture, produce. And I think the other thing that I forgot to mention is, sea level rise. Countries like Tuvalu and Kiribati, they're feeling that pressure because of the low-lying islands, and when that happens, they're going to lose their islands and their homes, and so that's another very real impact of climate change in the Pacific.
Yeah, that makes total sense, and it seems like, I mean, someone's a whole island or maybe even a whole country going underwater would be pretty devastating. And even for islands like Samoa that are frankly very mountainous, so you're probably not going to have the whole place submerged. In my experience, most people seem to live along the coast. I mean, Apia, the big city, is very much along the coast. Fiji with Suva and
yeah,
is like that too. I mean, that even threatens people.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Of coastal developments, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
But at least we have the mountains to relocate to. But with the low-lying atolls in the Pacific, they have nowhere to run. when that happens.
Right. They have nowhere to climb to.